Welcome back, sixth graders. Hope you had a fantastic spring break. I miss you very much. And I hope you're all happy and healthy and doing well, and your families are as well. Um, I really miss our time in person together. I hope that these video lessons are helping you get a little bit of the Keelan essence for you. So today we're going to start looking into a pretty dark period for the Roman Empire, and that's its collapse. We've looked at the expansion of Rome, which definitely has some dark periods, but we're going to look into how a thriving civilization that controlled much of the world around it collapsed and fell apart, at least the western half of it. So this week is going to kind of explore the factors that show how the Roman Empire fell apart. So, in many ways, the Roman Empire began to really deteriorate after the rule of the five good emperors, which followed the Pax Romana. And we see that from 235 CE on, there's a real steady decline of the power of the Roman emperor in Europe, especially coming out of Rome. We're going to see that eventually the Roman emperor won't even be in Rome. They'll be in Constantinople. But that's for a future lesson. So it really began to erode very quickly. One of the main problems is that Rome had no real standard for how a new Roman emperor would come to the throne. It wasn't exactly a monarchy in which, like, my son becomes the ruler after I die, and then my grandson becomes the ruler after he dies, so on and so forth. Instead, it was kind of left up to whoever earned the position with the widest support of especially the military, because if you had the power of the military behind you, then you had the power to control the people of Rome. So whichever Roman general was the most popular with his soldiers, and remember, there's many different Roman armies within the Roman army, they would claim throne. Well, another Roman general would say, well, no, I claim the throne. And then another one would say, no, I claim the throne. If you look here, this shows that from 235 to 285, there were over 20 different emperors in that short span of time. And if you look, assassination, 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 and then a couple killed in battles. None of these guys die a very peaceful, nice death. I'd say the worst of them is Valerian, who was taken as a slave of the Persian Empire and was used by the king of the Persian Empire as a footstool for him to step up on his horse. And then when he eventually died, the Persians had him stuffed, had the guy's body stuffed and preserved and put in one of the Persian emperor's temples. Yikes. Not fun. So with this vacuum of leadership, there's no consistency. And you would see that one general would have another one assassinated, and then that guy would get assassinated. And we see oftentimes the Roman emperors, it would be a very hard gig, and you might be emperor for a couple days, and next thing you know, you're dragged out and killed in the streets. Not exactly a great job, and not great job security. And when you don't have a leader to keep governing things, it makes a vacuum, and it leaves a lot of weaknesses throughout the empire. There's nobody to really make decisions that an emperor would do. And we see that things tend to get worse and worse, not just for emperors, but for Rome. Another big aspect is that the Roman Empire just kept getting so big that eventually it was too big to manage. And there's an expression, too big to fail. When it comes to empires, too big will fail. And we're going to see that you can't really govern an empire that's that vast effectively, especially with, technology that existed 2,000 years ago. On top of this, the Romans don't really have one organized army, but many different legions spread out all throughout this territory, so their military stretched thin, and often these legions are led by generals who compete against one another. Hence all the assassinations. Hence often you might have legions fighting against Roman legions and a lot of civil war. And most of the legions are on the boundaries of the empire. So the inside of the empire, the main territory, is not really defended. And if they were called to battle in one place or another to try to expand the empire, it left openings for outsiders to come in and what they call the people that they call barbarians to start settling in Roman territories. And we're going to see that they're going to gain population and power internally. So these outsiders are going to increase in their population within the boundaries of the Roman Empire. And since the military is not unified, the Romans can't necessarily defend themselves. We talked about the Persian king a little bit earlier. They have trouble in the east with the Persians. They have trouble in Africa with the Berbers. They have trouble with the Huns and the Goths and the Visigoths and all the barbarian tribes in the north. So as you see, here we see the empire at its height in 117 AD. That's a lot of turf to govern from this one small area to control this. And yes, we talked about the infrastructure the Romans had with their highways and their aqueducts and all the different infrastructure they put in to effectively govern this. But eventually, as you keep adding more and more land to this and stretching your army thinner and thinner and thinner, it gets more and more difficult. On top of that, we see that because the population of those barbarians starts going up, the Roman tradition was to integrate people into their empire, to eventually give citizenship, like Caesar did, to people who serve in his army. Well, many of these new people joining the Roman military are not necessarily loyal to Rome. Many of them never even traveled to Rome or have been in Rome. Many of them don't speak Latin. Many of them don't really believe in the ideals of Rome. But who are they loyal to? Their general. And they're loyal to their emperors, in which generals and emperors give their soldiers the most pay. And if the soldiers are unhappy with their pay, then that general or that emperor might end up dead. And because basically to get the loyalty of the soldiers, you need to be in power, we're going to see that emperors are going to mint more and more money and pay off more and more and more soldiers. More and more and more. And this pressure to keep the army well fed ends up starving many of its people. And Rome is going to run out of money that it can spend on its people and on the empire and sustaining it. So we're going to see that the sum of this, that there's a lot of military and political problems that were at the core of weakening the Roman Empire.